Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Masters Toronto's getting real spicy. 4 teams will remain in the tournament after today, and Sentinels may well not be one of them. They play Fnatic in what's going to be a crazy elimination game. The entire bracket is absolutely stacked after the results of yesterday. TenZ giving his opinion on various topics, especially the Sentinels versus Paper X series. What do you guys think in the comment section below? Big drama as well on the format and the future of these Masters events. Very much intrigued to your thoughts. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Of course, the bromance in between Zelsis and Sufat continues, and well, what a game that they had yesterday. Firstly, to mention RB, who's been doing the rounds, I mean, of course, on DRX for a time, then went to Titan Esports Club. Now, it looks like RB is going to be back from the Chinese scene, and he's going to be back to the Pacific, and he's going to be joining Nongshim Red Force. So, pretty remarkable addition, really. I wasn't seeing this coming exactly. I think maybe it made some sense that RB was going to leave Titan Esports Club and look for, maybe he would see it as greener pastures. But still, it's not like those Chinese teams that maybe you don't expect to do too much damage, don't have some potential in there, because we're certainly seeing that right now with Wolves Esports, and we'll get to that in a couple of minutes' time. But RB back to the Pacific, interesting adjustment. There's also this. Does it mean anything? I'll let you guys decide. But Verno says duo at SOM. Now, there's a few interesting things here. Of course, firstly, it would be a surprise to see these guys back together again, just because, as we know, Verno was on NRG and things didn't especially go to plan on NRG. Now, how that all transpired, we still don't really know. My general feeling is that, you know, Verno was not getting on so well with FNS. They had to make a decision one way or the other, and it was like, well, look, if you're going to get rid of... The rumour anyway was that Ethan and maybe even Som, although maybe that could be called into question based on what we are seeing right about here, is that they were like, look, if you get rid of FNS, we ain't playing anymore. That was the rumour anyway. I don't know what's true on this situation. But then the team was like, well, damn, do we keep Verno and keep Bonkar? Or do we have to keep FNS to make sure that we can actually maintain the rest of the lineup? That's what they decided to do, but in due course the team was a disaster. They've brought in Scuba, Bonkar is kind of back, and, you know, let's be real here. Bonkar, Scuba, Verno had great success in Oxygen Esports. There is a world where Bonkar and Scuba would want Verno back in, and maybe Som now in the situation would be happy with it or tolerate it or whatever. I don't know what you guys think. But the idea that they're teaming together here is a little interesting, just because obviously Verno joined MRBR and it went well, that this tournament they turned up and got absolutely slammed to such a degree that they've probably got to think about what they do from a roster perspective after Toronto. So it's just something to keep in mind, that Verno and Som spotted playing with one another. I'm not saying, oh, Verno's going to be back on NRG, but I'm saying that it's something that you would at least think about could be an option. And I don't know if it's going to happen, though. This is Leo Faria. He talks about the first seed advantage, the first seed disadvantage, whatever you want to say. Now, at the end of the day, Riot and Leo will have their opinions on this. The players will be, you know, maybe better positions to judge what they think is a true fair advantage. Look, is the current format perfect? No. You know, is it okay in the circumstances? Probably yes. Should there be more teams at the tournament? In my opinion, yes. Like, you know, in an ideal world, Masters would be 16 teams and Champions would be, you know, what, 24 maybe? Like, that's how I would do it. Like, I would be... as it is now, there's more teams at Champions than there are at the Masters tournament, and obviously it's budget, right? Like, it would cost more money to get the teams all out there for champs, and I do totally understand that. But there are ways to do it. Other esports have done it very successfully in time, and I think that that's what would solve the issues. To me, is making this a 16-team tournament at Masters rather than 8 and rather than 12, which is always kind of an awkward number. I don't think Riot are going to do that. That would just be my perspective. But Leo says, we believe that the advantage for the first seed is substantial. First seeds get no risk of being eliminated in the Swiss stage, guaranteed top 8 finish, bringing them closer to higher prize pools and championship points, the ability to dissect every other team's strats while keeping their own under wraps, more time to prep and settle into a new city, they're over with everybody else, pick their opponents at the start of the playoffs. That said, tournament momentum is real. We've seen a number of awesome low bracket runs that are at least part induced by good morale of winning streak and getting comfortable on the stage. There's other factors, changes in the meta, they affect all the teams, has its pros and its cons, but it's an equal playing field that keep events more dynamic and less predictable. We think it's good for the fans. At the end of the day, results matter most. We don't have a huge sample size for statistically relevant analysis yet, but first season performed as expected or better on average. Our goal is to start playoffs with all of the 8 teams having an equal shot at winning, and that feels true today. We'll keep monitoring and make changes if and when they're needed. So it is interesting, right? Like, I definitely see Riot's perspective on the advantages they see for the first seed. And yeah, all of these things are true. How much of an advantage that really lies in certain aspects is a question mark, and how much that kind of is offset by the advantage of actually playing more in the tournament and getting that momentum and experience and practice on the stage. I mean, the idea of they get more time to settle into a new city, like, I don't see that being an advantage, because what's important is settling on the stage, right? And I know that there's also an argument to say, well, look, you play on the stage every week in, week out at your, let's say your home region, right? It's not like the teams aren't used to playing on a stage, but that's the environment that you need to get used to at a different tournament, rather than the city, I would argue, anyway. But I see it from both sides. I think we'll see how it goes. The conclusion, it seems to Riot, is they ain't changing it anytime soon, which is maybe fine. The pros will continue to complain about it. Maybe changes will happen in due course. As I say, my ideal solution would be to make it 16 teams, but, I'm always in favour of more Valorant being played. So, but of course there are obviously pros and cons to that discussion, certainly from the Riot Games side. FNS was also talking about format changes, because the lower bracket games, these like huge elimination games that are happening right now, could they be best of 5s? They're currently best of 3s, and I mean, look, they're playing 2 matches a day. Could we have time for 2 best of 5s a day? Absolutely, if we wanted to, that is a possibility. There's a big break anyway, FNS says, between today and the 4-team playoffs at the end of the weekends, which for sure is true. So, with that in mind, you've got to think that this is something at least to consider. FNS says, okay, could we potentially spread out the tournament a little more, have more best of 5 matches, especially in the lower bracket? The players would be down for it. We'll see. But for now, it's best of 3s, and we got there with some crazy results yesterday. This really was the crazy result, right? Wolves played Gen.G, and they've done it again. Wolves genuinely look like they could win this tournament right now, and that's really exciting for the league. I think the energy these guys bring in, honestly, the most impressive thing by a margin for Wolves is their mental game. Their ability to go down, stay in the fight, and reset has been mega. And I think that Lysor deserves a lot of credit, right? Because he was getting criticised heavily after the first match of the tournament. He was like, oh, well, this guy keeps flying against the Chinese teams, but against everyone else he can't do it. Maybe he just needs to picture all those opposition big Chinese rosters as well, because this series he was cooking, making good plays, but it was the comebacks, right? I mean, Gen.G, 9-3 up on the first half of Split, get beat 13-11 by Wolves. Sunset, 8-4 up on the first half of Sunset, get beat 13-9 by Wolves. Like, insane mental ability to reset. I think the way that Wolves were dealing with Texture and his plays was pretty impressive, right? Like some of their mid-round adjustments saying, okay, Texture's doing this, we're going to do something different, or we're just going to use a lot of our utility to shut him down. I thought Wolves played really well, and they secured a winners bracket finals spot, guaranteed top 3 in the tournament. Gen.G dropped down to the losers bracket. As Sufat says, lock in the upper final, the whole world screams for us, like, what a result, right? And how far can they go in this tournament, right? Like, we've seen it with some of these Chinese teams. We don't really know what version of the Chinese teams is going to turn up. We've always kind of said this, right? Trace Esports, Edward are kind of more of a known quantity internationally, but all the other Chinese teams, you don't know whether they're just going to bomb out or whether they're going to make a run. And, well, for now, it seems like they're going to make a run. Certainly that is the case for Wolves. Sufat says, Zel says, I'm waiting for you in the next rounds. And Wolves were like, hey, Sen, you want a rematch on Friday? But they're like, actually, no, sorry, we're going to have to rematch you in the grand finals. The next series, though, to determine which team also went down to losers was Sen versus Paper X, and the track-by-track trade, baby, it keeps on rolling. I thought Sentinels had a chance in this series, and probably they did. Certainly on the game 2, they arguably will feel like they should have won, but the game 1, they got absolutely slammed, and the Wolves press conference after their game was still going on, and Paper X and Sentinels game 1 had already concluded. It was a 13-3 masterclass. And then the end of the second map, Sentinels had a decent early lead in this series, or in this map here. But Gen.G was trying to take it to overtime. Forsaken hops on the defuse. And if you look at this, he just spams it around. Unfortunately, Gen.G just can't connect the shot quite in time. And that's GG. And as TenZ says, he gives his perspective on it. Wow, one in the most PRX way possible. High sense, Forsaken moving different. And I mean, look, you can look at this screenshot right here. He's defusing the spike, but because he's moving around all over the shot, there's just nothing, unfortunately, that Gen.G can do. So pretty remarkable, right? Like, what a way to win, what a way to lose. But Sentinels go down. So, this was pretty emphatic, right? They'd beaten the 3 Chinese teams so far in the tournament. Paper X here were the marginal favourites, and they did win, but they win probably more emphatically than they expected. Patman, I know, was responding to some of the words that were said after the fact, but the 13-11 on the sunset, this was the one that Sentinels feel like they probably should have won. I mean, losing 6 out of the 7 final rounds on what Senset they often call it. And maybe Pearl could have gone a different way. So I don't think it's over for Sentinels yet, but getting 13-3'd on the split, you're not going to see that very often. I think Sentinels would have looked at this map set and said, we've got a great chance there. That's not how it worked out at all in the end. Zelt is frustrated with it, and they drop down to losers to play what's going to be such a challenging game for Sentinels to keep going in this tournament, and it could be all over very swiftly. Patman was responding to a couple of things. We also had some remarkable statements such as this one from Jing. Jing was asked the question, hey, you used to use a lot of the Vandal, we're now seeing a lot of the Phantom. What's going on? But he says, in my dream, it was revealed to me in a dream. I was playing Valorant and I was using the Phantom and I was destroying everyone. So then I told myself, maybe I'm just a Phantom player. I tried it in scrims and I was killing everyone. So, Jing revealed because his subconscious mind told him, or I don't know, the universe inspired him to use the Phantom, and now he's absolutely cooking. So, maybe it's just destiny, right? That Jing is going to be officially back, and they're going to go on to win this tournament with the Phantom in hand. But Paper X get the job done. They clear their past losses, they get some revenge, and it does set up what we talked about with Fnatic, the Sentinels game. Kayak says Sentinels are a better matchup for us, they are beatable, the dream would be to go and win on the entire tournament. And this is how it presently looks. So you've got the Paper X Wolves upper final. Who predicted that one coming into the tournament? Certainly who predicted that one when Paper X were like 0-2 in their region at the start of the season, and they were fighting to even get through into the playoffs. What a timeline, what a turn of events. Gen.G G2, Sentinels Fnatic. Those are the lower rank games coming up in a few hours' time. Absolutely mega. Who's going to win? My predictions yesterday were atrocious. I guess we'll give it again another go today. I've got G2, I think, continuing to make the run. And then, Sentinels Fnatic. Who do I take in this one? I think I'll give it to Fnatic right after what I saw yesterday with Sentinels. I'm not so convinced, but I'm probably going to curse both of these teams again. So very much interested in your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.